The number one argument I hear people use about why interest rates can never rise again is that if rates were to rise, the powers that be, they would lose control of the economy. That just the interest payments on the debt currently owed would explode in such a fashion that you'd have to print money 24/7 that maybe for a generation would never be able to keep pace just with interest payments. The bond market would implode. We'd have Zimbabwe, Weimar Republic-like inflation, and there's no way the powers that be, they can let that happen. No way. No way. The numbers now are just too big. We've never seen this before. This is completely aberrant. Where we are today is completely aberrant. Never seen numbers like this ever before. Well, let's look back at the savings and loan crisis and do some figuring, little mathematicals. Savings and loan crisis, failure of 1,000 out of 3,000 something savings and loan associations in the U.S. over a 9-year period. Estimated value between 400 and 407 billion. Literal cost to taxpayers, according to the GAO, $160 billion. So let's talk about inflation since then. Inflation since 1990, the middle between 86 and 95. What would you estimate it's been for the last 25 years? You think 1% a year? Oh, come on now. Nah, I don't think anyone thinks that, right? 10%. You think 10% a year? I know some of you raised your hands. I don't think 1%. I don't think 10%. I think somewhere in between. Now, if you want to split the difference and say 5%, I'll even fudge down to 4%. Let's go to 4% a year. Now, stop chuckling. I know many of you say, what are you, reading the government statistics and believing those? No. I'm simply trying to find a conservative measure to show you something that I know many of you might not have thought about. And that is, in inflation-adjusted terms, we have seen numbers like we see today and not even a generation ago. Take 4% a year times 25 years. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That gives you 2.66, a 2.66 multiple over the last quarter century. Meaning, $1 in 1990, you would need about $2.66 to represent the same in inflation-adjusted terms. So, let's take 2.66 times 400 billion. And there's 400 million, and there's 400 billion. That gives you roughly $1 trillion. Savings and loan scandal, that crisis would have been like today, $1 trillion, poof, going up in smoke. With an actual real cost to taxpayers, $160 billion times 2.66, about $425 billion. These numbers are very consistent with what we've seen in the last 5 years. TARP legislation alone was $850 billion, most of which has been paid back, by the way. Savings and loan scandal, that money just gone. Inflation adjusted, that money just gone. And the cost to taxpayers back then evaporated. Well, more accurately, in the hands of bankers. So when you say that the numbers that we have today, these numbers are just so aberrant, never seen anything like this. On a nominal level, well, that's accurate. But inflation adjusted, it's not accurate. Inflation adjusted, we've seen numbers like this many, many times in our history. And when people say that this time is different because this time they would have to print for the next 1,000 years and that we'd have hyper-zany inflation, it will tank the economy, etc. I ask people, why do you think that they have any other motive? What part of the last 100 years of boom and bust cycles have you not looked at? Have you not recognized that for 100 years bankers have done precisely the thing that you say they can't do this time? Boom, bust. Over and over and over. The numbers just keep getting bigger. But on a percent basis, they're not. On a nominal basis, they are, but inflation adjusted, they're not. They're not different. They're not radically, insanely higher. Nominally, yes. Ridiculous. But if I told you in 1980 that the GDP of the United States of America would be $17 trillion 25 years later, what would you have said? Would you have believed it? Forget 1980. Go back to 1979, 1978, 1977. In that time period, would you have believed where we were today in nominal terms with GDP? Would you? Honestly? Because I can remember back then, I don't remember anybody thinking it was going to happen. I heard a lot of talk about the end of the economy, the end of America, the end of everything. I heard that. And yet here we are today, GDP through the roof. And by the way, also debt through the roof. There's no doubt about that. Everything through the roof. Prices, et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing that's been consistent is every generation. They say, oh, they can't go higher. They can't, this time is it, man. Country's going to implode. If they do it again this time, it's over. And yet, it's not Weimar Republic. It's not Zimbabwe. And we stand again at the precipice of a time when rates, statistically speaking, somewhere in the near future probably will rise. Now, what I've shown you here is the past. I've only shown you the past. I've given you some benchmarks to look at. And you can still argue with me that in the future they won't raise rates, and you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can think whatever you want to think. And again, my opinion on that matter, not super relevant. But here's what is relevant. James Bullard, who's the president and chief executive officer of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, says if the United States risks inflating asset bubble prices if interest rates remain at zero. This is from March 23rd, 2015. That's yesterday. According to him, keeping interest rates at zero will lead to devastating consequences, and that the Fed should get on with normalization as soon as possible to prevent more aggressive rate hikes later, which could cause significant market volatility, etc. Now, it's important that you understand, I didn't say this. This is not me. This is not my opinion. This is what the president of the St. Louis Fed says. That, in his opinion, rates at zero will lead to devastating consequences. Well, along with that thought process, you've got Federal Reserve Vice Chair Stanley Fischer, again from yesterday. Probably see rates rise this year. Scroll down to the key passage, they say. An increase in the target federal funds range likely will be warranted before the end of the year. Liftoff, there's that word liftoff. Liftoff should occur when the expected return from raising the interest rate outweighs the expected cost of doing so. Okay, well, let's look at Fed's Williams. This is again from yesterday. Mid-year will be time to start rate increase debate. Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco President John Williams reiterated Monday his belief that central bankers should consider raising rates sometime this summer. Things are looking better. In fact, they're downright good, he said. Given how much the economy's improved and is likely continuing to gain ground, quote, I think that by mid-year will be the time to have a discussion about starting to raise rates. Oh, wait, there's one more thing I want to show you real quick. This is an article from Time Magazine, and higher interest rates are coming. This is from yesterday. Here's who wins and who loses. By the way, forget the entire article about, who's going to win and lose, except for one headline. Scroll down. Who has helped? Banks. As I've said 1,000 times. Banks make money by borrowing at low short-term interest rates and lending it out at higher longer-term rates. In an ideal world, they'd love short-term rates to remain at rock bottom, as long as longer-term rates are high too. So you might not think they'd be cheering for a short-term rate increase. The problem's been that long-term rates aren't high but low. Meanwhile, short-term rates can't really go below zero. They're stuck at. That's left them little room in the middle. A rate hike would give banks a window of opportunity to earn more attractive spreads once the Fed moves. As I have told you, ipso facto, banks make money when rates rise. Now look, hold on, check it out. You can, if you want to, argue that rates will never rise again. You can, if you want to, argue it's different this time. You can do it in extremely flamboyant fashion. You can make videos and write articles, and you can anything you want. That's fine. But when you do that, don't worry about my opinion. It's the opinion of the folks who actually run this joint that matters the most. History shows, time and time again, the very things that happen now have happened over and over and over again. And in the generation when those things happen, people consistently say, oh man, this time it can't, it's not going to, it's different. I know. I've heard it. We've read it. We've seen it. I keep giving you examples, though, of every time in the past we see these situations, generation later, it's happened again. You've got to separate what you believe bankers are telling you and what their actions have spoken for the entire history of their existence running our economy. If a banker says we got to raise rates because it's going to be good for the economy, or if we don't, it's bad, you can take the opposite side of that philosophically, and you understand that a banker tells you we got to raise rates to help the economy. What they're really saying is we got to raise rates so we can make money. If a banker says we got to lower rates to help the economy, no, as history's shown you, they're going to lower rates, lower the velocity of money, so they can do what they've done in every depression: buy up assets on the cheap when you don't have any cash. And no matter how many times I talk about this, I'm frustrated that many people, they think that I'm trying to tell you something that's my opinion. It's not my opinion. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know what the story's going to be. And I don't think any of us really know what the ultimate impact will be afterwards. If you tell me that the ultimate impact is Zimbabwe, Weimar Republic, and implosion of the economy, I again ask, what part of the last 100 years don't you already see as an implosion? If you say that the economy will be destroyed and people be in breadlines or whatever, I mean, why do you believe, if you believe that that's not part of the overall plan? I don't understand. What part of 100 years? 99% of everything is owned by like 1%. What would surprise you coming next? Did you not see what they did in 2007 and 2008 and 2009? Do you not remember the cataclysmic, just complete annihilation in asset class after asset class? Why do you suspect, those of you who believe they can't raise rates this time, because this time this will be the real big, man, if they do it, we're really going to implode. What part of implosion haven't you already seen? My opinion is not relevant. Statistically speaking, I think they're going to raise rates. I also think that statistically speaking, it's going to be a disaster. I agree. And I think statistically speaking, that after the next rate raising cycle, there'll be another panic of some sort, some other sell-off, maybe more precipitous than any of those that have preceded it, and the cycle will continue. I don't know if it'll be greenbacks. I don't know if it'll be bitcoins. I don't know whether it'll be silver doubloons. I don't know what the currency will be used to try to paper the next crisis over. But I know that there is another crisis coming. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next video.